a very good evening to you and welcome to this evening's edition of Politics 101. A little late start, having some technical difficulties here, but I think we have got it sorted out. Welcome wherever you are. Please share the link. Dr. Henry Jeffrey is here, and we are going to be talking about a number of issues. As you know, corruption is very much in the air, and we've been talking about it here on the program, and we want to talk to Dr. Jeffrey about that and some other issues. Dr. Jeffrey, how are you?
I'm fine, David, and I can see you are fine.
Yes.
And notwithstanding your technical issues.
Yes, let's get straight into it. This past week we've had a flurry of revelations about possible government giveaway of lands and involving business people from the United States and so forth. You have been in government, obviously, and so you would have both an insider's view of these things, but also your eye as a political scientist. What do you make of these recent revelations?
Well, from what I've been hearing, it would appear, I'm saying appear, that there has been some public misuse of public resources for private gain. It would appear so. Now, what one should have done a long time ago, I believe, remember, I'm the first person to start distributing public lands for housing. Indeed, when we got to government in 1992, there was no housing policy. Indeed, they had closed because of the level of wages was $3,100 and something dollars. It couldn't have done much in terms of housing. So they had essentially closed down the housing sector. You still had the CHNPA that was essentially giving permission to build and such like things. And on one day, on reading the mandate of the CHNPA, I came upon this phrase that said that they are supposed to provide housing for the working people. And this was sometime in 1993, after Chetty Jagan had passed the CHNPA to me. Remember, my first ministry had nothing to do with it. Was Minister of Labor, Human Services, and Social Security. It had nothing, but the CHNPA was in my building, and so Chetty said to me one day, "Man, why don't you take that thing, CHNPA?" What it does is essentially give permission to build. The level of wages was really too small for anybody to do much. So I had to read, what is it that the CHMP had to do? And so when I came on this paragraph, said, build houses for the working classes. Well, I said, really, how are you going to build? There's no money around anywhere. How is it you're going to build any houses for working class? And anyway, I called, I forget his name now, but he's there. And I said, tell me about the CHNPA. And it so happened that the CHNPA had all these lands. And I said, why can't we sell these lands to the people? But they have money to buy it, period, the working classes. But perhaps there was widespread squatting at the time, if you remember too. I said, people are squatting all over the place. It's not better. We have lands. we are selling them to individuals, 20 acres, or making attempt to sell because some people had not paid. And so I said, why don't we just give this to the working class rather than have them squatting all over the place, and then ease the squatting, and you can control squatting. And so that's how we started. We took the lands, the CHNP at Melanie, we took it at Ogle, and so on, and we start distributing these lands. If I'm correct, at the time when this occurred, we Ghana had, from my reading, about 100. Ghana had about 100. Can I go on or need to
Yes,
stop?
go right ahead. Continue.
Ghana had about 170 something thousand, but house lots on the ground. And I'm saying to myself, well, here what's happening. If we have 175,000 house lots, most we will need is another 200,000 house lots, because it's going to give me 400,000 house lots. We only 8,000 people, 800,000 people. We're not going to get there. Therefore, we need 200. And by the time we were leaving, we had already done some 20, I think, housing scheme to give away house lots. I mean, I might be wrong with those numbers, but we were getting to that number. And the focus should have been then to get people to utilize the lots. Once, if you got now 4,000 house lots, 400,000 house lots are near enough whatsoever on the ground, you can't just now give out more house lots, because every time you are giving out more house lots, what you're doing, you got to build infrastructure. But the other house lot that you have given out, nobody's using it, or people are selling it. So you are saying, I decided then that, look, if you're not using this house lot, we keep your name on this list, and that take it and give it to somebody that's using it, because the job of the CHNP was never to give out house lots. It's to give out accommodation, it's to give out land, it's to give out land in a fashion that people will build. Not just to give out a whole lot of house lots all over the place, nobody building on them. And every time you do an house lot, particularly today, at that time, we reckon it was $500,000 just to pass the pipes and the water. Now must be about $2-3 million, and it's left empty. So effectively, by now, what you should have had clearly happening in Guyana is some audit of what has been given out. We are still about 700 something thousand people. We have been giving out house lots all the time for the longest while. We must get past 400,000 house lots. You have the average per household is the average is 4 persons house lot. A household. So what are you doing with all these houses? So I am saying that what is necessary is a total audit of what has been given out in house lots. How many house lots have not been utilized? And what I also start giving out Natram and all these people. I start giving house lot to private contractors, because there were always a group of people that can afford to build, but they had to build on our conditions. The PNC had done that before too, with the house lots outside at UG, the whole bunch of land there. Indeed, I are running some problems with it that they have given it to people. And the people couldn't build, but they were doing things there that would prejudice the price of the land. For instance, if the government give me a piece of land, as the PNC did, to build houses for working class, and then I start put up a fancy fence around it, what happens? What the working class can pay immediately increases. And so what needs to be done? Firstly, in the housing sectors, how many house lots have you given out all this time? Because you can end up with one person with 3, 4 house lots and 5, 6 house lots. And some of them Indeed, if they are doing that and they build houses, you might not have mind, but they are doing that and speculating on them. But so you need to find out clearly how many house lots have we given out in this long time. We have been giving out house lots. It's all at 92 or Jesus. I mean, you're giving out house lots, and every government since then shouting how many house lots they have given out, and every year you're hearing this. And so let's have a clear notion of how many house lots are now on the ground. Facilitate the people better, the working class better, to have to get loans, because now people are working for a little bit. The wages and so on are far from what it used to be, and so you've got to facilitate through the bank for people to get loans and so on to build houses. I had started also, I said, with private sector people, because my first housing scheme I did with whom? A small housing scheme in McDC in Well Road in South. It's a first. I mean, the idea was to get houses of people. So effectively, after that, of course, nobody knows what's going on. All you're doing is waking up every morning and hear house I give out, thousands of houses. Every regime that has been, well, not so much the PNs, because they seem to have changed from giving us houses to want to build back houses. No, that's a more dangerous thing to ever try. One of the reasons I got into the start dealing and don't bother, let people build their own houses, because they had a whole bundle of houses all over the place. People are not paying any rent, but when anything come on wrong with your house, they come on you to do it, and you don't have any money from the government to do it. So all these flats, I think it was some 2,000 flats. So I sold them out. Well, the government sold them out to the people themselves. Let they take care of them. That's how people get out of it, because you can't be affording that. And so when the PNC came, they started with this thing again, with building house, and I said, well, maybe that's their way of going about. But I've not spoken on this issue. I said much on this issue. But what is necessary is for the people of Ghana to know how many house lots have been given out so far as a starter. And the audit should, well, obviously, we'll have to deal with the private sector. Who is getting what to get what done? And that's where you have to go. The thing is too loose. It's on the ground. That's all I can say. I mean, it would appear that some shenanigans are taking place between Ahmad and what's his name. I agree. I would not go there. You know, 1 minute you knock off a man who used to get 700,000 and double his salary for the other man. I mean, these things are all questionable. I mean, how do you know that? I mean, maybe the other man was working for so much money that you really want him because he would have done something great. And the result is that you had to pay him this kind of money, and he did something great. But I'm not seeing nothing great in the housing sector outside of what was happening before. So this need a major. This need a maybe more than just a simple audit. You need the whole inquiry as to how much land give out thing. People talk about Prado. When we started, I started Prado one. By the way, let me make one thing quite clear. People say, Jeffrey, I never got one house lot from this government. Right? So get this quite clear. Not a single house lot have I ever had or ever tried to get from this government. My family sort of always had land around the place. So that was not thing. And I came and I buy my own place where I live and live since 1980 or so. So let that put that to rest. I never had any land. I never give no land to anybody free or nothing like this. So get that. I love you guys. But what we need quite clearly is some kind of clear understanding as to the policies. As I was speaking to you just now, trying to explain that you are building. CHNP is not there to give land. You are giving land as a means to an end. And that end is to have housing on the ground. And essentially, it was for the working class. The middle class, what they assume could take care of themselves. But even there, if you don't give them some land, how are they going to take care of themselves? Nobody can clearly sit down today and tell you, give you a story of what the whole scenario look like now. So you can hear about how much, you can hear about this. This one is buying land here. This one is thing, and so on. So there's where I am. I am. Yes, but it's clearly appear, because that's what corruption is. It's the use of public office for private gains. And it appears that that is what has happened. But it's happening everywhere. It's happening in the police. Just now we didn't hear some man transferred 20 million from his own. I mean, and now he left the police. So are the police now knock him up? No, it's not. But then we have Sue. So what are we talking about here? So yes, I mean, you introduced the issue rightly by saying it's corruption. But there's only one way to stop corruption, public corruption, David, and that is by having an accountable government.
Now that's where that's where I was taking you next, because you would have noted that with the allegations swirling, the vice president weighed in and said that he spoke to Greaves, and Greaves told him, look, I acquired this house by clean money, and I'm satisfied with that. And I'm saying that that's not how you run a government, where you, an individual in the government, are sitting there with this thing wide in the open and saying that I am satisfied that the man is guilty or the man is innocent, sorry. What does that say about government itself? When go ahead, you go right ahead.
It tells you that the vice president won't lose a single vote, what regards to we civil breeze. When I say a single, I mean any meaningful vote.
Right.
And that is where Guyana politicals, he knows that. We saw it with the teachers. He's not going to lose any significant vote. He's not going to be voted out, no matter how much. Look how long you're talking about corruption, Mass. Everybody, when you say you, I mean.
Yeah.
Instead of getting better, getting worse. What I'm saying to you, the governments are not accountable until their actions would have led to them losing office. It's not going to lose any vote from it of significance, because you were doing this since when? And has anybody lost any vote? It's like just gaffing. It's a gaff. Yes, we know it. Corruption exists in the people of Guyana. In my article, I said only 22% of them think the election is thing. There is public corruption for private gain too. So what? The question, all of that is corruption. Corruption not just about land. You don't deal with the city at Georgetown properly so that you can undermine them to stay in office with a private gain. There's corruption too. Corruption is not just about money and taking bribe like police or so on. The whole thing, and ordinary people on the street saying it. They are saying all of them corrupt. Yeah, well, I've heard that. You must be heard that 100
times. A million times.
They're telling you clearly, all are you corrupt. Since you say you're a politician, them all are you corrupt. You must be rich too.
Yeah. And if you listen to young people today,
yes,
they have given corruption a broader.
Because they are trying to buy them. They are going into their communities and say, if you vote for me, I can do this. They're buying them so they know that it's corrupt. They know that is wrong. I told you 2 weeks ago that when people, this is not new, of course. The old colonialists used to do it. They come before the PPP. The PPP gets going, there are whites and all them that just come and try to buy you off. And my mother took sewing machine off, but she said, they think I'm stupid. Me, I'm voting for them. So this is not new. But it's after all these years, and a party that Chetty Jagan and all of them built, that think, and Forbes Burnham and them built and think it would have gone somewhere. Look, it's back to square one, hustling to buy votes. And then you run to all those young people and say, do this, we're going to come, we're going to give you this, we're going to give you contract. You read the article of some woman in Bel Air the other day saying, they give the man some contract to do the road. Like he started and then he disappeared and left this people. You know, there are so little cul-de-sac. Nobody bring the garbage still to the main road. She ended up by saying, who give these little boys contracts? I mean, so let's not go there. I mean, when you start talking about corruption, first of all, you never affect any political change by way of election and all that. But more than that, you must be aware that it is only going to be changed if you have fundamental change on the way you have government. And that's not going to change, as the British even are now turning, until you properly deal with the Constitution. You are living 20 years without a Chief Justice and a thing, and you got government, and you got democratic government. It's 20 years, 2 decades. You are living without a Chief Justice and a chance, a permanent, and they are the third pillar of democratic governance. So when people come and tell you about democracy, I just laugh, because it's a laughter. You can have people that you can almost knock off. You remember what happened a couple of weeks ago when they're talking about putting another person in this person's place? That is enough. And then you got foolish people who comes up and say, these people must be brave and take. Well, let them be brave now and go out and say, they must be brave. They're brave enough. What they can do, they do, but that's not. When America put in place the Supreme Court, you can't do nothing to them after you appoint them. It's a total different game. They can be totally on your side when you appoint them, and the next day you can't even talk to them. You can't even force them to resign. You can't trouble their salary. You can do nothing to them. So they got, once you make them a Supreme Court, it's only the ideology keeping them with you, if they got the same ideology. But other than that, they go. In Guyana, you control the people's salary, you control everything, you can do all sort of things to them, because why you have not made them permanent? And then you sit here and talk about accountable. How you get accountable? First of all, if the government do something and you believe that's wrong with it, you're supposed to be able to run to the courts. It's happening now to Trump. What did he say? Borch, if you're born in America, you shouldn't have things. He went to the court. You see what the judge said. No. All of us went through that. We born America. I mean, essentially. But they went to a court where nobody can touch that judge. Nobody. Anytime he does anything is because he's ideologically linked to what is going on. Now, every time you go to the court, you have to ask where they are, because the government has leverage over them. I mean, so David, you want to talk about corruption, talk about the system. The whole system got to be changed. That's it. It's not so simple something that you're going to stop overnight. I mean, but I leave it to you, are the politician.
And in the era of oil and gas, with all this money and all this thing, I mean,
but
more of a cancer. Yeah. Dr. Jeffrey, 2 weeks ago in your column, you weighed in on the GCOM scenario that is ongoing there, and of course, the chairman of GCOM continues to hold out that things can be done to meet the opposition requests or demands, or however you want to put it, but it can be done in time for the elections. And you weighed in and you said, among other things, that significant political struggle is required to get the situation at GCOM to shift. Talk to us about that.
Because what is happening at GCOM is fundamental to the whole system. Because what we've been talking about just now government and who's the government and who's
Yes.
not. Well, if the government corrupt GCOM, what happened? That mean you end up in a dictatorship that you can't change. That will happen. Therefore, it better you go to church and hope that some male body come and help you out, because that is it. And so if GCOMs get corrupted, and remember the Hannibal we used to have with Bullers and Borno.
Yes, yes, yes.
You wouldn't be on the street against Bullers and Borno.
Yes, yes.
Well,
And the
then you
president,
got there again. That's
yes,
precisely what come around. You see, what goes around comes around when you start mouthing a lot of things about, oh, well, you're moral. Well, it's the same thing come around. Because effectively, everybody, almost 20 people percent of the 22% of the people in the country says, oh, they are sorting the government legal. Well, legitimate. 22. So this is not a battle between the PNC and PPP anymore. This is a battle for the people against the political elite. At the time, the PNC is in government, the PPP is in government, but GCOM has more, as I said in my article, GCOM has more power than anybody else in Ghana, maybe outside of the judiciary and the government itself. And why did they have get all this power? Remember, the PNC was going to argue that they got so much power they can change the constitution. They got more. You remember that was part of the PNC. And the Chief Justice said, come out and said, they were given that power because GCOM should look at every issue and see every issue and deal with it to come out with free and fair and sensible elections. GCOM cannot have been there since IRI did a poll and see that and didn't take any action, and now come and tell about time. And in Ghana, I pointed this out 2 years ago. And then I used 2012. You see what happened in Ghana in 2016. Again, they changed. In 38 days, they do all the work to get 50 million people registered. So what are they? It's just nonsense, of course. Total nonsense. To do what they want to do. They're going to keep the system because it keeps them, the system keeps them in government, and the government is doing that. Therefore, it's corruption. This is not a fight between the PPP. This is a fight between the people of Guyana and GCOM, because the people of Guyana give GCOM a whole lot of power to do things for them, not for the PNC or PPP. So there you have it. But you are the politician. So as I said before.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey here tonight, and we are talking about a range of issues as they present themselves in the news. And as we say, in a place like Guyana, every single day something comes up. Jeffrey's arguing here that it is the system itself that needs changing. Dr. Jeffrey, I want to get your view on this because I don't think you saw it. I don't know if you saw it. Of course, the opposition side is talking about coalition going into government, and the WPA said at his press conference yesterday that look, we have to see coalition at 2 stages. The first stage, of course, is collating to remove the government, electoral coalition. But then there needs to be a second stage of coalition, is then to move towards a national government. And you, of course, have been very, correctly so, very critical of the new AFC government that ran on it, and when it got into government, did not move on it. And the WPA seems to be putting it on the agenda again very early. How optimistic are you that this time around there could be some genuine movement in that direction?
David, thank you for that. But I did see it, and it's not how optimistic I am. It's the only hope people got. It's not
Mm.
if I'm optimistic or not. You don't have another hope because you know the PPP. The PPP going around doing all sorts of, usually even going back to colonial days, doing all sorts of corruption. Essentially, to stay government. The only hope is that the opposition and the various parties out there will get together, somehow change the government, but introduce what they promised to introduce the last time, a government that represents all of the people of this country and not 51%. Let's be quite clear. You see what happens when that happens. You know that Donald Trump, look what he's doing. And they're saying the same thing. Oh, this was we got the mandate from the people, but they never even win the plurality. Trump didn't win the plurality. And the result is, he's saying, the 49 or much percent vote for me. That is what I got to carry out. But that's not what the Democratic government is supposed to do. Democratic government is saying, even if you got 80%, that you are supposed to look at what the 20% want and try to come together with a project that we all can build this nation together. But that is the people doing that. We will adapt. Therefore, we carrying out our manifesto. They claim the truth. I saw what you said in the press. Essentially, the two-stage thing. But yeah, but I see it as a little bit different. You see, Guyana. Let me explain why I see a little bit different.
Okay.
In Guyana, when you have a coalition, you normally have a coalition between forces, political parties, and they have I think the AFC and PNC had a coalition agreement. That coalition agreement is like the Bible of the coalition. Men is going to sleep with it in serious coalition under the pillow to say that this is how the coalition. And then at that point, I think they tried that too. I can't remember clearly, but you have a coalition committee that you can always appeal to us and this thing we are doing here is not going forward proper as we had planned it. And therefore, we got to change, or it's got to be explained, or something got to happen here because it is not proceeding as we had planned it and understand it. And therefore, you might even have an arbitration between yourselves to say what was going on here. These things don't take long if you do them second. And therefore you come to some agreement that this is what must happen and this is not must happen. Guyana Constitution, of course, because it's like it is, it doesn't allow you to form a coalition after the election if you want to remove the government. No, most coalitions are formed after, and people know much votes they got and all that. So you form it before, and the result is that people can claim they would have had any number of votes they want after the election finish. If whether you win or lose, nobody would know because of that playing. We can make assumptions and all, but nothing. So yes, the idea, or let me put it this way, my thing is, the idea, you what stage one is getting rid of the government. I would have put that as the second stage. I would have said, we have to get rid of this government to put something in place that represents all the people of Guyana. And we are fighting this election to do precisely that. You understand me? I would have made that the priority. Because when you're going out there, you have to say to people, all right, you remove the PPP, then we got to depend on you to do something else. And then this is theoretically, because in both cases, it's a matter of you winning. But people must know why you are winning. People must know what is your major drive. You must have some clear notion. Not like you and what's his name, Okonzaya the last time come all over the place trying to explain what the apnu mean and all of this by these things. You should have something clearly to say, this is the level of governance we are talking about, constitutional change and all this, and we are going in the election to do that primarily. And that should drive us to having a proper liberal democratic society. But when you put winning first, then you make that secondary. You win, and then the whole lot of people start coming and say this and that. But I was putting that forward as you asked the question.
Yeah.
My notion of when I saw it in the press, what you were saying, and that.
Yeah, but I want to press you a little bit because you're raising a very important point. But we have the practical situation where it's very difficult to tell opposition supporters about going into an election for a national government because of African Guyanese experience under the PPP. There's a hard line against the notion of shared governance and so forth. Now, I'm confident that if political parties say to them, look, this is where we're going, they will fall in line. But you often would talk on this program about the different public opinions.
Yeah.
Is it out of place for us to take the public opinion of our base into consideration as we grapple with this issue?
Yes, but when you tell me they are not, David, you're planning upfront to cut them.
Talk to me.
Yes, because if you are saying this opinion is what we are going to base on, although our opinion or what we plan to do is quite different. Because you are saying, boss, if we said they're going to vote for you, but once they vote for we're going to do what we want.
Well, that may be one way of looking at it.
But that is the way. The truth is, I understand what you're saying. You're saying it's one of those problems you face in politics, the conundrum. You need a vote to get a government going of national. But then, if they vote for you not to do that.
Oh, I got you. I got you.
You know, so, that kind of a thing got its own dynamic. I am certain, 100% certain, if you speak to these people haven't got no great thing. People understand. PPP supporters got problem with you too. So what your supporters expect? They expect you to go and tell them, if you win, you're not going to accommodate PPP supporters. Well, that's precisely what the PPP supporters must be think of you too. So you have got to break away from this thing of saying, you got to tell your supporters what you're going for and what it is clearly. When you put it in your manifesto, it don't matter what put not in the manifesto. They had it number one on the manifesto. As we were, it was a Carter Center thing us about that. Said it was number one, Yeah, but you start doing anything, and you start doing other things on that same basis that you just come up with, almost that same argument. Our supporters and understand, and we can do this, and we can bring the. Oh, you're gonna bring the Indians up by you knocking off 9,000 of them.
Jeffrey, how did we get to a situation where the PPP is actually promoting a one-party dictatorship? In the old days in political science we used to call it what? A single dominant party. How do we get to the point where the PPP is talking about basically assimilation? So look, black people, you all come under we, and we go run this country.
Remember,
and the PNC are the ones now who are, and the WPA. And
the PPP got there since they used to have a majority. It started. And when you knock off Janet Jagan. So the PPP, because that's what happened. People run on the streets, all sort of thing happened. Then you make vitiated this closet, vitiated on constitutional rather than any counting of vote grounds, by the way. So the PPP now, how long I wrote on this thing, that the PPP is set for political dominance. They are telling black people, January ain't going to be all right, and that is it. And they want to do everything since then. That was their drive. How they get there, largely because they have a listen, first of all, the PPP come out of a Marxist-Leninist context, in the sense that it doesn't matter how you get political power. The gap of a democracy, you can be gaffing, but political power is to bring a change, proletariat, all this sort of thing. Janet Jagan particularly came out of that context. And since about 2000, 2002, when she got things, they have decided that the party is open. They used to write it boldly. If you have been boldly open to those who want to join them and be part of them. Like if that is what democracy means. So essentially, always anything Bart Jagdo is doing now is a continuation of that at another level. It's just a continuation. He's saying essentially the same thing, and using the state and all that to get through, manning a mission or fan. What is this? How are you going to use as public servant that you have control over the promotion, everything, to volunteer? It is not no army. You got to volunteer to come out and be man. If I suppose he or that I'm a public servant, I don't want to come. I'm not coming out to no man. Mission is nonsense. Next thing you know, I can't get promoted. These things are wrong. You can't do them like that. They're going into every area, as we just know, into even local government, undermining the local authorities instead of giving them resources. They're undermining them to get Africans to go and vote for them. And that is why almost every African, it's a terrible thing. Almost every African you see coming out and talk with them, somebody can come, PNC man could come and say, look, all of them talking from there about how wonderful the people, they are under the cloud of some court case. You can do that under Cherry Jagger. The minute you had a court case, Cherry Jagger will say, where you going back? He'll ask you got any problems? You don't tell me up front. The minute you had come up with a court case that you got, he said, no. This is not a place where people come here because they got problems like court. But look what has happened. I have not heard anybody saying, come up and the PFC can't turn around and say they got court with Van West Banda. They got court case with the government, so the government can use the case to it. I said, this is madness. It's not, I don't know who did what and who didn't do what. That's not the point. The point is, once you are coming to my party as a national, I should be saying no, man. Wait till this thing solved or thing, and y'all tried it. No, 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 no. Thanks for your support, but you've tried it. You can't be coming, and then the people can be sitting back and say things like, they only come there because they got court case and they hope the government ain't going to bring. So you cannot bring my story up. So just to use it to influence me all the way down the road. So David, I mean, you understand clearly that the system has to change. The PPP, you ask when they came there ideologically, they're always there. Practically, because Chedi had nothing else. He and Janet, they weren't racist, but they used racism to mobilize the PPP all their life. They thought when they come, they're going to be the ones going to be in the distributory mechanisms and so, and it's not going to matter. Well, it mattered. They didn't have nothing else. What else they had? They were out there for 23 years, and they used Burnham, PPP, Black, PNC, Black people, and others for 23 years. It's ingrained in some of these people. That's all.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey here tonight. It's ingrained in them. Yeah, there's an interesting exchange between Ramkaran and Guyana. I found very Ramkaran is saying that Guyana attitude to Jagan was that Jagan was a racist, and Guyana in this typical way basically said, "But you say I evolve." My view on Jagan has evolved. It means that you haven't got no case against me, right? Basically, what you were saying there, that Guyana was responding to the
context,
and Ramkaran, I think he understands, but because he's not seeing the PPP as you were seeing. He's seen it, that they use race and ethnicity all the time. They've done that. He's seen them as Marxists. So if you're Marxist, you can't use race.
Marxism is a theory. Marxism is a theory. To Stalin and Lenin use all sort of brutalizing method to get through. You think they hold on to government in the Soviet Union? Yes, they got this great theory that was going to happen when man change and all of that, and you have socialism and all of that. But you think it's too brutality. You think it's two peasants get killed by Stalin for his view that he think that would have occurred. I can see that at the time, if you there in the fight with Jagan and he's saying certain things, for instance, Jagan come up with this thing, it seemed like the PP did come up with this notion about the Caribbean, joining the Caribbean and Indians, and well, that pointing straight to levels of racism. But if you understand what the PP had written to the Soviet Union, that's what they say. It's not strict racism. These people promised these people, and they wrote it. It is not a joke. There's blame Burnham for what happened all the time. The PPP is more responsible for what happened in Guyana. They wrote the Communist Party, Communist International, asking them for resources to take Guyana and the Caribbean into to the Soviet Union. You think they ain't get into the hands of the CIA or them, and then they pass it on? So when they said Jagan coming to power in Ghana, you think it's just so. When you think you got all them Caribbean leaders backing down, because when they go and explain, they might say, we are not going to say how we got this information, but it's there. And now we know it was there. Now we know that it was there. I used to tell Jagan all the time, I don't care what you say, you are. You are all communists, and I don't want communism in Guyana. So that is it.
Do you think this present PPP has made such a deal with India?
No. Well, this present PPP, India is an autocracy like this PPP. And they will use Modi is an autocrat.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you look, India is worse in the terms of classification of government. Guyana is above India. Guyana is considered something like an electoral democracy. India
Autocracy.
is considered an electoral autocracy. So, I mean, don't worry. I mean, India, they can talk Indian talk. And this, it wasn't always so either. And the Gandhis
The
and so
Gandhis,
on,
yes.
it
Yeah,
wasn't always so.
yeah.
So that don't worry, thing. India, I mean, yes, India is now their colleague. India should be their colleague because that's what they're going to. Singapore, you have, oh, they want Singapore. Singapore is below them. When the American had, when Biden had his Democratic summit, they invite Singapore.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey here tonight. Dr. Jeffrey, your column this weekend, I don't know how much young people read newspapers. I know they're on social media and thing, but you dared to tackle a subject that the rest of us have not had the courage to tackle and to confront it. You responded to a letter by a young man, you know. I know he's not there 25 because I know him. He's in the media and so on. But you responded to a letter that he wrote. This typical thing that young people are some or the other marginalized from the political process. But very importantly, he's asking young people not to vote based on what the PPP and PNC did in the past. They must judge the parties on what they have put before them. And I think you got to what you refer to as the innocence of young people. Talk to us. Talk to us why you decided to take up that subject.
Because let me tell you something. I don't know, Mr. They like to talk to or anything. So don't think it's the theory and how it came.
Yes, right, right.
When you say the PPP wants you to do precisely what he's saying you
exactly, and exactly.
Precisely. And I said, where is this coming from? Is this coming from a real understanding of the situation? Because the PPP, now the PPP can't deal with the jargon issue for a start, the one I just mentioned. That is half the problem, more than half of the problem they face. Because at the end, the Americans put Burnham in power, largely because Jagan go and become communist. So all the time when they are blaming people Burnham for their problem, they should be blaming Jagan for their problem either in the hemisphere, and he go and do that. Therefore, the result is that if Jagan make Burnham president, and if Burnham was a dictator and stayed there for 28, 30 years, it's Jagan makes so. But that's difficult for you to swallow when you grow up all this time. You know, I mean, if I can see it myself, if I wasn't always used to tell Jagan, you're overcoming. I mean, even Jagan was friend long. But I tell you all the time, you're a cool comedian, and I do want comedians. So, but I can see now if you have been brainwashed into this thing for years, that think, this don't make Jagan a racist. It makes him a politician that's going to use what's on the ground, which was the only thing was to keep people together, was that. How many people in Kamal, Ravi, them come from party and try to wrench the Indians away from Jaga. They couldn't do. But what they were saying, he's saying essentially that only look at what's happening now.
Yeah.
And what is the PPP doing? What's happening now? You're getting a lot of money. You're getting a lot of this. You're getting a lot of this. That is why you should take and suggest that the government is doing. if you want to get rid of history, how are you going to judge what you're getting now from what you get in the past when now you're getting 100 times more money you get in the past? Please tell me. It's foolishness. So effectively, you can't say just forget what you have learned in the past and judge from now. Indeed, as I said in the article, if you judge from now, the PPP meets. If you only do that judgment and sensibly from just now, the PPP should get nowhere. The amount of money they got, and look, this country is more rent park today than it ever was. But you have a country for, you got only 22% of people believe that this regime is legitimate. Maybe at the time, 50% of people might have believed them for Boredom and for their own burdens. But what's going on here? So that is why but you see, it came, that conclusion is what drove me to say, because I read this nonsense most of the time,
Yeah.
But as I said, I think young people were at the echelons of kind of politics for the longer than old people. They didn't run Guyana politics. It's not the old people. When the old people come, they come better. When Howard come back and all, he did better than when he was there with Boredom when he was young. Is Boredom, Jag and Adam in the 30s and so on. They are the ones that have been running this country. Jag, the orphan, who running it now? So it's nonsense that you got to change anything and bring your new people. The new people are socialized in the same context. As of us that do sociology 101, they are socialized in the same context. They come and look what they have presented to us. And I said too morally that, look, and I pointed out that since we look Cambridge, when they come up to form the party, after all, if you form a party, got rules and regs about what you should and should not do and so on. Now, if you want to change that's fine. If the party don't want, leave and form your own party. You can't stay in the party position and do what they try to do and form the AFC. No one there in the country, you're there where you are. And of course, Sarabo then follow and now they're being blamed.
But it's interesting, because this country is a hell of a country. Asha Kisun is not the only person who's squatting on a seat in Parliament, right? I'm from the WPA and so on, so we don't necessarily talk about that. And you are the first analyst. You are the first analyst that point out that Asha Kisun and Sarabo Ali are both squatting on seats in Parliament, and they're young people.
Yeah.
you know, and I found that quite interesting, the way in which we in Guyana tend to be so selective in the way we think. Like I said, we in the WP are painfully aware that we are not in Parliament because Mr. Granger awarded our seat to an individual who left our party. All right? But we expect people like you and GHK Lal and all the other analysts to say that. None of them says it. You are the first person, and it jumped out at me. I kind of read it and I said, wait a minute, what Jeffrey just said? And I went back and read it. But you are correct. Young people have always run this country. Burnham was 30 years in 1953. Jagan was the oldest. He was, well, J.P. Lashman Singh was older than Jagan. But Jagan was 35.
Yeah.
Janet was 33. Guyana was 28. Martin Carter was 26. Young people have always run. Orphan is a little boy. Jagdio was 35 when he started. You're right, except for the oil period. Yeah. Young people run things in this country, yet young people are saying that old people don't want them in the political process and so on. Just today I was telling my class that I heard Walter Rodney for the first time. I was 14 years old. I ran home and asked me, Auntie, can I join? She said, yes. I effectively joined WP at age 14. And we never had a youth arm Because we were young. in 19 in 1974, Rodney was 32.
Yeah.
So when you made that point, I think right. But a lot of well, not a lot. I shouldn't say a lot, but some of the young African Guyanese professionals tend to make that argument that we mustn't look at the past and we
When
must
it's
and so on.
time.
I don't see it a lot from the Indian Guyanese young
Of
people.
course not. Who's going to tell them that? Who's going to go and tell them when their alliance is based on the past?
In case you have not read that article, it's in the Village Voice, and you can go online and get it. It's called Parties, Policies, and Young People. It's a good read, very, very, very good read. As I said, we tend to be very careful, again, because of the logic of the politics. You want young people to come on your side, so you don't want to have that kind of frank discussion and so on. And it's good that at least one person in the public realm has decided to really address that question quite frontally. Dr. Jeffrey, we are getting closer and closer to election. We still have the GCOM thing hanging over our heads. You have said that, as we discussed earlier, that it is a political struggle that has to think that. Is the joint opposition up for that political struggle?
Well, if they're not, they better get up. You see, this is not if they're up. It's better to give up if they're not up. Because effectively, it has to occur. It just have to. I mean, as I said there too, you have 200 ways of nonviolent struggle. And if you can't get some people to sit down and come up with 20 ways that can cause major thing in this place, I don't know. You should. I mean, remember, you're not asking PPP for nothing. You're asking the constitutional regulatory body to do their work. All the people you got from the CARICOM, you should lead a delegation to CARICOM and said, y'all come and do, you all brought some people to do a recount. This is what they said. What is your position now? The same thing should have the European Union said, look, you found out, you say all this. What is your position openly now? And what are you planning to do to drive this forward? You can do everybody you can go to, but that's only part of what the strategy should be. You have good chaps like Borkal and them on the ground. I'm saying you have got to work with people because you need it. It doesn't matter. Let me tell you why. It doesn't, for me, we need the air clear on who support who and how the support are going. This thing of everybody believe that this massive rigging the whole government, it can't go on forever. This is not, we need some clear support thing to know who or what to represent. All the theories they talk about, people start talking about the theories about they'll vote for this, and if you do this in the last election, you can see the numbers are all bogus. They are bogus. You can't write nothing serious and go back to the old numbers and say, this is the number from this is the number from 92, this is what it was in 2000. They are bogus number. The PPP is, when the PPP in government, you don't get no census report, This census bureau should come under the parliament. I've said that years ago. But if you're not getting any census, you don't quite clear about the population and who, where, and all that. Indeed, why is it that you can't take the GCOM to court and force them to do their job? because the Constitution is clear. They got all these powers. People don't believe that thing. It has been demonstrated elsewhere that this can be done. Why don't you go to court and force them to do their job?
Dr. Jeffrey, here tonight, the Working People's Alliance has put before the, well, we are in talks with the PNC, and we've put a three-pronged approach: political action, what we call public action, go to the court, and formally go to CARICOM, heads of government and the thing.
Yes.
We have put it on the table. In fairness to the two parties, they have set up a committee to look at all of those issues and to in a very short order, make some recommendations to the leadership of the two parties on how to act. And we made that public, that this is what is going on. But Jeffrey, I want to get your thoughts on something. Because you and I, all of us, talk about the ethnic nature of our politics as being overriding. I have been getting a slew of messages from mostly, I think, all African Guyanese who are pointing to this discussion, this public discussion about a consensus candidate for the impending coalition. But these messages are pointing to what these mostly working class people see as a class assault, mainly on Aubrey Norton. But what they are pointing to the middle class. And the reason I'm agonizing over it, because this is the worst time for that thing to raise its head as you're going into an election where the other side is united on these issues of class and religion and so on. But it seems to be raising its head among African Guyanese. I suppose they're right to me, because the WP has said its presidential candidate is not in the race. And I've been sharing it with the members of my party, but it's something that's bothering me, and I would like to get your view on it as someone who's not a political, partisan political actor.
First, well, let me say something. We are in a context where, if it was possible, or if you were going to get votes, people got to have, particularly from the other side, they have to have some faith in you. They do. For the most part, they do it.
Right.
You are talking about democracy all the time. But in your own party, a man win a thing by democracy, and you're doing everything possible to get rid of him. What do you think I should say if I'm outside? These people are not serious about no democracy. They want democracy when they win. And that's what the people been saying for years. For years. They want democracy when they win. Even their own party, Norton, won a free and fair election. They're fighting him down. Mr. Norton been quarreling for years, but that don't mean anything. He went there. Why are you fighting him down? This part, you are bringing in class, and I think it's a whole lot more than that. It's like they see political opportunities, and they think he shouldn't fall to Norton, and they thought when they had given up the last time and the government changed that they would have been back in office. It's the same thing. But they can't sit down and discuss it. I cannot understand. They can't see what they're doing. Or they think, no, it doesn't matter. It matters. Even if I don't care how you think you will win the election. The truth is that you have a credibility problem in terms of democracy. And in your own party, you're trying to destroy it. Although your party stands in relation to the people where that don't exist. No democracy don't exist. There's a whole time democratic centralist apparatus kind of thing. You pick who you want, you put them, the party can say what they like. You just the Congress, you do what you like. But you stand out as perhaps the first, this major party that went to all this trouble to go to all sort of voting and things. And now when you watch, David, that's my position on this thing. Norton won, free and fair in the thing. Alexander was there, he mentioned the thing, free and fair, Norton. And it's the largest party of the coalition. Norton got a right to go forward. I don't even understand it because you if you circle Norton, well, what's going to happen? I mean, he's going to come out better, far better than he is at this moment, because he's not a chap that don't listen to people. I've never heard him. Don't listen and think to people. I don't know, you might, but I am saying, what it is? It's something, it's another dimension. And that's why I add that dimension, that they had expectations. And the expectation has been dashed by Norton throwing a spanner in the work. So now they want to get rid of the spanner, Norton, and everybody.
Could they be thinking that, look, we can fight this fight here and it doesn't matter, black people will vote for us anyhow?
Who's that?
We're going to lose any vote? Those who
are...
No.
They're no better than that. They know. Look what happened at Linden in 2006 when there was a little fissure.
Okay.
Black people now Indian people.
Yeah.
Black people vote very loose. The PPP know it too. That's why let's go around and do all this thing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you met Jack just said during the teacher strike. He said when the journalists say, oh, but some people in your country said, don't worry, they're gonna vote back by election time. They're gonna vote
for PPP. African Guyanese tend to be
around
more liberal in terms.
Maybe around the world. You got about 19% of how much? About 9% vote for Trump, whatsoever. Yeah. But 50% used to vote for the Republican parties.
Up until the 60s.
It's only the 60s and this whole thing changed.
Yeah.
I mean, so don't worry. No. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jeffrey. I know it's been some difficult questions tonight, but I think we have to probe them and we have to discuss them because the world doesn't end tomorrow, thankfully, and it wouldn't end with the next election. We still have a Guyana after the election to deal with, and these problems are not going to go away until we frontally address them, whether they're constitutional problems, whether they're problems of political culture. We have to confront them. And so while as a partisan actor, I hesitate sometimes, the other side of me, because my upbringing is one in which you discuss these issues openly at the risk of not getting a vote, and so on. Thank you, my brother. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right, David. Thank you. And thank you to your audience.
And thank you to all of you who joined us. Quite an interesting discussion here tonight. Some of you have been saying that you want to make your contribution, but I don't put the money story up. And that is part of when you pour. There it is. There is the information. For those of you who made contact with me and say you want to make your contribution, but I don't put the banner up underneath the thing like other people. And that's when you pour. When you pour, you study money, how you gonna get it. But when it comes to really figuring out in a practical way, you tend to say, man, God gonna take care of it and so on. And what you all been telling me, no, doctor, it's God I'm gonna take care of this thing. You got to like them by this is no run from water, you know. Yeah. To about 3 people have said they want to make their contribution. Here's the information at the bottom. In case tomorrow I don't put it up, you almost remind me to put it up. Please remind me. Oh, it's Tuesday. The week just started. The week is young. So I see you all tomorrow night for the midweek edition. I don't know what getting on tomorrow night. Can't remember. Getting old. Well, I'm old already. Okay. So we are going to be on again tomorrow evening, tomorrow night for some of you, tomorrow afternoon for some of you. Until then, as they say, be good. Don't do anything to get yourself in trouble, because we need all our soldiers for this engagement.